Greetings, brothers at Gamma Pi chapter. I am excited right now to be able to have the opportunity to bring before you one of our charter members, one of the charter members of Gamma Pi, Brother Timothy McIntosh. I am Brother Reggie Pickett from the Public Relations Committee, and we are excited to be bringing you interviews of the charter members and to just get information on how our great chapter, the super chapter of the Mighty Second D, how it became into formation. And so we are excited here to be sitting next to Brother Timothy McIntosh. Brother McIntosh, thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to meet and talk with us about the beginnings of Gamma Pi chapter. And just for the brothers that may not know you as well, I want to ask you a few questions, a few personal questions as well. If that's all right with you, Brother McIntosh. First, where did you grow up?
Well, Brother Pickett, thanks a lot for this interview. As I was preparing to do this interview, I looked through some of the records that I have, and I noticed that there is an article wherein I was the senior of the month while at North Carolina Central University. And this article depicts a lot of what you had asked, will be asking, I will assume. And let me read this article to you. Hopefully it will enlighten you. And it says, Timothy McIntosh, who is the month's senior of the month, hails from Wilson, North Carolina, where he lives at 927 Carolina Street. He was born August 17, 1939, and is one of 6 children born into the family of Mr. and Mrs. James McIntosh. Tim attended Sam Vick Elementary School and Darden High School. After graduating from Darden in 1958, he entered North Carolina College at Durham. Of course, it's North Carolina Central University now. He entered there in September of that same year that he graduated from high school. During his attendance here, he has been a member of the Social Science Club, the NAACP, the Mathematics Club, the College Sunday School, the Panhellenic Council, the Lampotters Club, the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. He also served as president of his sophomore class. Since his freshman year, he has been editor, publisher, and distributor of a weekly paper entitled the Chidley Hall Bulletin. That was the bulletin for our dormitory. Okay. This year, Timothy is a member of the student government, the Student Welfare Committee, the Panhellenic Council, and he is serving as the public relations manager of the student government. Timothy is a mathematics major and a French minor. His interests lie in the teaching profession. Unlike many, he has unique hobbies of participating. As long as a purpose is constructive, he is ready and willing to offer his participation. Tim is quite fond of dancing and playing cards. Everyone should know him because of the noise he makes daily. You see, this is his 4th year as the campus bell ringer. The fact that he is liked by those who know him is attributed to his being able to mingle with people, regardless of their status or affiliation, and by helping with an optimistic attitude. So that sort of depicts just a little bit of who I am and where I come from with that Senior of the Month article that was published by the school.
Wow, you've done a lot. You've done an absolute a lot. Now let me ask you this: do you still like to dance?
You know, it's amazing, Brother Pickett. I have not danced for a long time, but just this past May 19th, my grandson and his fiancee got married in my backyard.
Okay.
And as part of the ceremony or celebration, my wife and I danced, and it was a rule.
All right.
A rule. But I still have emotions. As a matter of fact, I recall in the earlier days when I did a lot of dancing or what have you, it was very, very enjoyable to dance with even Brother Dr. Adam McKee's wife. I'm throwing out some names here now. Brother Adam McKee is one of the charter members over at UNU.
Okay.
And having gone to district meetings and conclaves, etc., we were like the belle of the ball when it came time for partying.
Now, did you meet your wife at North Carolina Central?
Yes, I did meet her. She hails from Enfield, North Carolina.
Okay.
And it's amazing. She always tells the story. I faintly remember. But when we were getting ready to take little tests, interest tests, as a matter of fact, placement tests, I should say, to see whether or not you would take remedial courses or what have you, I did not have a pencil. So I whispered to her, "You have a pencil." And she always remembers that. That was the beginning. And from that time on, for the 4 years of school, she has been my sweetheart.
She's been your sweetheart since.
Yes, she's been my sweetheart.
Oh, wow.
And we got married immediately after we graduated from college. And so we have been married now since 1963.
Okay.
So you count up the years from there.
Okay. All right. 1963. And you have 2 children?
I have 3 children.
3 children. 3 children.
2 adult daughters and 1 adult son.
Okay. All right. All right. So what was your initial attraction that made you seek the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated when you were a student at North Carolina Central?
You know, the founders said you will seek out people of like mind, like interests, etc. And when I went to North Carolina Central University, the people that I associated with of like mind, like interests, etc., was a group of us. And of course, we were part of the cream of the crop, I should say, because we were honor roll students. And so we decided that we wanted to pursue Omega. And of course, having come from Wilson, North Carolina, where that was the predominant fraternity,
right?
Because those people who taught us, who were principals of schools, who were dentists, etc., they were very, very active in Omega. And so I knew a little bit about the background of where I wanted to go, and I wanted to emulate people like that, right, of like minds.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, were you a sophomore or junior when you pledged?
When I pledged, it was a requirement that you be second semester student.
Second semester. Oh.
Sophomore, what have you.
Okay.
So I pledged the year before I went over. I went over in 59, so I pledged in 58.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind, would you mind telling us some of the things you had to do when you were seeking Omega?
Well, certainly the fraternity brothers at that particular time had their requests of things for you to do. And of course, you try to do them as best you could. Now, a lot of those kinds of things are considered as harassment, so you can't do those kind of things. You know, telling you to do this and do that.
Right.
But we weathered the storm because that was one thing we knew at the time, and we knew we had to do it to go over.
Okay. Okay. How many was on your line?
There were 12 on the line.
Okay.
And we were called the Mighty Dozen.
The Mighty Dozen.
The Mighty Dozen.
And what number were you?
I was number 8.
Number 8. All right.
Yes.
All right. All right. Now you were a math major.
Yes, I majored in mathematics.
Okay.
And that sort of propelled me into my career.
Which was?
I initially, after graduating from college, I initially taught school for 1 year. I taught in Newport News, Virginia. And the reason for Newport News, Virginia versus some place in North Carolina is because Newport News, Virginia was paying just a little bit more for teachers than the North Carolina school system was paying. If I recall correctly, North Carolina was paying something like $3,600 a year, $3,600 a year to teach.
Wow.
And when I went to the school in Virginia, they were paying $4,200.
Okay.
So I started at $4,200 teaching. And of course, when I, after a year, by being in the mathematics area, the federal government was looking for scientists, engineers, etc. at that time.
Okay.
And I really don't understand how this letter came or from whence it came, but the federal government had asked me if I would be interested in a job with the federal government.
Okay.
And certainly the federal government would have been better than the teaching profession. So I told them, yeah, and I pursued that. They called me to Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, for an interview.
Okay.
And had my interview, etc. And they followed through with the security checks, etc. And I got a job as a mathematician statistician, because what we were doing, we were evaluating weapon systems that had been stored over periods of time to see their reliability, to determine whether or not they were of quality to be issued to the troops for utilization. So I was able to travel to Huntsville, Alabama, Redstone, Arsenal, different places, etc. And that's how I got a lot of my travel in too, because I was able to go to Vietnam. I was able to go to Germany, etc. So it afforded a lot of opportunity.
So the federal government is what brought you to this area.
The federal government, yes, from Newport News, Virginia, and then going to Aberdeen Proving Ground in Baltimore, in Aberdeen, Maryland. But I stayed in Baltimore. I lived in Baltimore and we commuted to Aberdeen. And I was in a carpool with there were about 4 of us in the carpool. And one of the carpool members is still living. He's about 86, 87 years old now. Brother Charles Austin. Still lives at Aberdeen. And we are very good friends.
Very good friends.
Right on. Yeah. But going to Baltimore, Aberdeen Proving Ground, and then I got a job with the comptroller of the Army, which was still evaluating, assessing, etc. And I was moved to Silver Spring, Maryland. And then from Silver Spring, Maryland, of course, while in Silver Spring, Maryland, I was working at the Pentagon and places around.
Okay. Now you pledged in 58. Would you describe for us the culture of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity in, during that time period in the 60s and in the 70s? What was the culture like in
the culture at that particular time was, I would consider it as true brotherhood. It was true brotherhood. When I would, see my friends or whomever, it was just like we were just brothers. My siblings were older than I, so it was just my sister and myself who were at home. My brothers had all gone away. Of course, my sister had already left the home. But it was true brotherhood, and whatever I had, you had. Whatever you had, I had. We enjoyed each other.
Wow. So when you think of an Omega man, what comes to mind? What comes to mind when you think of an Omega man?
Reflecting on that particular question, Brother Pickett, is what you said in your correspondence to me. And let me read to you what you said in your correspondence to me. The interview is not only about you charting Gamma Pi, but also to give us a little insight of who you are as well. I have always admired you, even when I was a child at First Baptist Church of Highland Park. You always stuck out to me. That's what I look for in Omega Man. Just like I stuck out to you, the same is what I would look for in anyone that I would meet and affiliate with.
Right.
I have been blessed. The Bible tells us that you are given gifts and talents, etc. And of course, one of the couple of the gifts that I feel I have, one is discernment, being able to look at a person or look at situations and discern about that situation.
Exactly.
And of course, with regard to another gift of hospitality, I guess that's why I was always all out, jovial or what have you. And then another was leadership. And it seemingly wherever I would go, for some reason, I got some thrust into a leadership role, which I readily accepted because, I was able to work in this situation.
Right. Now, you're absolutely right. And for those who, who don't know, I actually grew up in the same church with Brother McIntosh, and Brother McIntosh was a deacon at First Baptist Church of Highland Park. And even as a child, as I mentioned in my correspondence to him, I always noticed you. You were always, you were always in charge of something, or you were always speaking, all of those types of things. You always showed yourself as a leader. There was something different about you. And I noticed that as a young child. Now, with all of your qualities, how would you describe your leadership style? What's your leadership style?
Sometimes I guess my leadership style goes against the grain because I'm a sort of no nonsense kind of person. You have to articulate a situation, follow the situation, and get the job done.
Right.
And not procrastinating around or what have you. Okay. And lots of times, people just don't want to stick to something or whatever. So that can be annoying to some people. But if I am assigned something to do, a leadership, or something needs to be done, and I think it ought to be done, and I think I have enough wisdom, understanding to be able to direct that situation.
Absolutely.
To be accomplished in a fruitful manner.
Okay. Now, as we did mention, you are a man of faith. You're a man of faith. You were a deacon. Are you still a deacon?
Yes, I am a deacon at Woodstream Church.
Still a deacon at Woodstream Church. How has your faith impacted your relationships in Omega?
My faith remains. the Bible tells us the way in which we should carry ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
When we were at Holland, when I was at Holland Park, and I don't know if you remember anything about the fraternity at Holland Park, you probably wouldn't because you were not in the chapter at that particular time. But there was this situation that it was talked against. Fraternities and sororities were talked against because, and it's still happening today in certain areas.
Right.
But I never let that bother me. And they say they talk against it because it's a secret organization. They call it a secret organization. But I reflect back, it may be a certain rule, a secret way that you're getting in, but when you get in, the kinds of things that you do are things for the community, for whomever, etc. So and of course, if you're going to ostracize someone for being a member of an organization that's helping people, you need to ostracize some of the people that you have in your pew and singing in your choir, etc. That come short of the glory of God. So that's where faith, and you reason within yourself the kinds of things that you, based upon your faith, is what you should do, what you should not do, or what have you, based upon what the Bible tells you to do, not what someone says. Because usually, lots of times, the ones who are talking against organizations like fraternities and sororities don't understand the history of those organizations. And see, out in whether this is June in 2 months, I'll be 83 years old. So I know where we got help back in the day from people who were in these kinds of organizations who carried on.
Have you ever met any of the founders?
Yes, I was in Pi Omega during the time of Brother Edgar A. Love. And I should also say Brother Roland Pian was also in the chapter at that same time. And it, he came to some meetings or whatever, but just to the fact that he was a man of the cloth, etc. He just stood out. He stood out.
Have you met any other famous Omega men?
I think you had mentioned Jesse Jackson. I did not personally meet Jesse Jackson, but if you recall, you may not recall, you're still young or what have you, but back in the 60s, with the sit-ins in the South, at the lunch counters, Jesse Jackson was one of the spearheaders of the sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina. And of course, those sit-ins spilled over to other campuses. And North Carolina College at that time was one of the places where the sit-ins spilled over to. And talk about leadership and being involved for purposes, for things that have purposes, etc. We participated, and I'm proud to say that I'm one of the ones who sat in at the lunch counter at the Woolworths 5 and 10 cent store in Durham, North Carolina. So
I had no idea. I did not know that. That is good to know.
And of course, I reflect back over the time. And as a matter of fact, one of my fraternity brothers, one of my line brothers, and of course, Lacey Streeter, and was the one who was with the NAACP in Durham, and he organized the sit-ins. And we followed right with my line brother, went down there, and you can imagine the atmosphere at that particular time of sitting in, and you had these rubbish Caucasian people who did not want you sitting in.
Right. Right.
And you never knew what they were going to do to you. You would slap you, spit on you, what have you. But we endured.
Now I have to ask this. Wasn't part of the questions, but now that you mentioned that, what kind of feelings were you having? What was, was there any fear, or was this something that just had to be done? What was
that? There was fear, as I said. You didn't know what was going to happen, and back in that particular time. And please be informed, knowledgeable of the fact that when a certain segment of society says we want to go back to the old days, that's what they're talking about.
Exactly.
When you were denied everything.
Right.
Go back to the old days. So sitting in, etc. That were old days. That's when these rubbish people would circle all around us. There may be a picture of, I think it is a picture somewhere, and down in my junk or what have you, a picture of all these people circling around us or what have you, and you just didn't know what was going to happen. And the people who were serving us, you didn't know what they're going to do.
Right.
Misspill on you, spill something on you, whatever.
Right.
It was a harrowing experience.
Wow. That's amazing. Now you mentioned you moved up to Maryland, and you were part of Pi Omega chapter in Baltimore, and then you moved to Montgomery County. Now, what maybe some may not know is that not only did you charter Gamma Pi chapter, but you were also a charter member of Mu Nu chapter in Montgomery County. What was that experience like?
That experience, as a matter of fact, utilizing the same kind of enthusiasm that we use for chartering Mu Nu chapter. I used that same kind of enthusiasm when I decided to be the forefront in establishing Gamma Pi chapter. Okay. And it was more or less people of high attainment, like values, morals, etc. One of the spearheaders of the chapter in Mu Nu chapter was one of the brothers named Brother Rudolph Snowden.
Okay, Snowden.
Now, Brother Rudolph Snowden was a principal in Wilson, North Carolina, out from Wilson, North Carolina. Right. And of course, he got a principalship in Rockville area over there. And so when I knew that he was in the area, and I hooked up with him. As I had told the new pledges, when you go somewhere, you always seek out the Omega people. Right. And of course, Rudy Snowden was interested in establishing a chapter in Montgomery County. And of course, I, along with Dr. Adam McKee, who rose to be the first vice grand bosses of the fraternity, as well as Brother Powell, Rudy Powell, who's a dentist over there. Okay. As well as one of my schoolmates, I can't say classmates because he graduated in year 2 before me from Tulsa, Herbert Owens. Okay. So with that connection and the others in that area, we pursued having, organizing a charter in the community chapter. Okay. And so when I came, I was living in Silver Spring, Maryland at the time, over on New Hampshire Avenue. Okay. I was commuting backwards and forth. And of course, that was part of the time that I figured that why not do a chapter here in Prince George's County? Oh. And I had gone from large chapters, such as the chapter in D.C. or what have you. And I sort of we were looking for that. You ask about how was the culture back then. That close friendship that the brotherhood had back in the early days. But I guess that more or less only happens with the undergraduate, because when you become graduates, it's a different level of it. So, anyways, we chartered a chapter here in Prince George's County with 20. Actually, it was 20 brothers, but 21 became 21 when brother George Edwards knew of brother Giles Bray, who was an Omega man, and brother Giles Bray, was on the charter along with us.
Okay. So were you still living in Montgomery County?
No, I had moved to Forestville.
Okay.
And that's where we had our initial meetings in Forestville at my home on Altamont Place. And that's where we gathered all the brothers that we knew of who were interested. And of course, Brother Heron, as I had already mentioned too, some may remember this, taught school at Central High School with my wife.
Right.
And of course, Brother John Robertson was also taught at Central with my wife. And they were Omega men, and they knew other Omega men in the area from Elizabeth City, etc.
Right.
And so we just got all those persons together and started meeting at my home. And
all right. So did anybody from the Mu chapter come over? Nobody from Mu was part of the?
Nobody from Mu stayed in Montgomery County, and we were in Prince George's County.
Okay.
And it was, I mentioned this once before too, the fact that there was Mu chapter and the DC chapter, there was a little problem. Charter and Gamma Pi chapter, because the question was, why not go and join one of those other chapters?
Right.
And it became so to the fact that I said to the guys, if we have to protest to get this chapter, that's what we'll do.
So was the problem from the fraternity side, or was it from
the district side?
It was from the district side.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Knowing what you know now, would you do anything different?
I would not do anything different. I don't know of anything I would do different. I'm quite satisfied how things have gone and how they have developed and panned out.
Okay.
The same thing.
What was the most challenging aspect of chartering Gamma Pi? Most challenging aspect?
Well, anytime you're trying to bring people together, you've got some who are enthusiastic and some who are not so enthusiastic, who just come along. So trying to make sure that you had everybody, come on, let's go along, or what have you, right on throughout until the charter and what it leads. So that's the problem. And with even with the fraternity now, with the chapter now, certain things, you just don't have the full cooperation, but eventually the guys will come on and do.
Right. So
that was a little challenging.
Okay. So you guys were meeting in your home. What were some of the first activities that you guys participated in as a chapter?
One of the good things is that there are mandated programs that chapters have to undertake.
Right.
So they were the kinds of things that we went ahead and engaged in.
Okay.
The mandated programs. And then, of course, we threw in a couple of other little things. We felt that with regard to our children, we had, and you may have been part of it, Kitty Cabaret kind of thing that we used to have.
I remember the Kitty Cabaret.
Kitty Cabaret, we had the children up there, a little dancing and refreshments for the children. And because we felt that if we kept the young people we were young. We were just having children.
Right.
So if we had those little kids in there, we got the adults also.
Right. Right.
So whenever we would go to district meetings or conclaves, we carry our kids.
Wow.
They enjoyed.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, they look forward to meeting each other. Joe's Williams' daughter, etc., and all of them. But they had that little thing too, and they had affairs for the children. So we kept them involved.
Right.
We started what was Easter egg hunt at Highland Park too.
Okay.
For the children. Once they got out of Sunday school, we'd already been there and hidden the eggs and all that, keeping the young people involved so that we could still have our adults involved.
Right. So involving the children help keep you guys close.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And one of the big things is which you carry on now is the senior citizen banquet.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to reach out to the community, and we organized a senior citizen banquet at Highland Park, and it was great. It was great. We had even the pastor of the church, his wife, Reverend McCord, and Sister McCord, as well as the original Sister White, Lucy White, who is the before Reverend McCoy became pastor, etc. They all attended the senior citizen banquet. It was great.
Yeah.
And to fellowship with those senior citizens, and they enjoyed it. It was just great. So they're the kinds of things that we ventured out into.
Okay. Tell us about some of the most rewarding or proudest moments that you have had with Gamma Pi.
Well, certainly one always likes to be recognized for whatever they have done. And I'm proud that right behind me is the Omega Man of the Year plaque, first plaque that was given by Gamma Pi for Omega Man of the Year.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I have some certificates also acknowledging my continuous being financial with the fraternity, etc. And it's just been a joy ride.
Cool. Now, I have to flip it. So I'm going to ask you, what were some of the most disappointing moments that you have had with Gamma Pi?
I should say also one of the good moments that we had was when we acquired property that we wanted to build a fraternity house on DLC Road.
Okay.
I would say that was one of our
proud moments. Okay.
One of the disappointing moments would be that over the years, we never built a frat house on that property. Okay. We went through having architectural plans drawn up by members of the fraternity, as a matter of fact. And of course, we had paid for architectural plans, but it never materialized. Okay. And I'm a stickler for a nice place for us to fraternity, fellowship, etc. Even in college, there was a building on campus that we found out was vacant. We inquired and got the use of that facility, and that's where we had our meetings. And of course, I recall vividly of us acquiring the kind of furniture. Those little sectional sofas, they still got them. Yeah. They fit right up in the corner and all like that, a little lamp and all like that. And as a matter of fact, I have a picture of the little facility. Yeah, so I got the idea of having a frat house from college because this is a picture of the frat house that we had on campus, and it was really a home, a little house, and we negotiated with the school to utilize it. So I distinctly remember the little furniture that we had because we had a little section of sofas that met in the corner, etc. But it was a very, very nice place to fellowship. So that's where I got the idea that maybe we ought to have a frat house in Gamma Pi so that we could do similar kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. Now, Gamma Pi has become a very influential chapter in the second district and nationally as well, internationally as well. Did you envision that Gamma Pi would have such an impact on the fraternity? And did you ever imagine that Gamma Pi would go from 21 charter members to 200 plus?
I never envisioned this because, as I stated before, we thought we were getting a chapter that was going to be sort of small and etc. But it has been influential, and of course, mushroom into what's called a super chapter because of the involvement of the brothers. But we were involved way back. We would go to the district meetings and we would participate. I distinctly remember participating on the recommendations committee with Brother Eddie Taylor. And I also fondly remember chairing the Achievement Week committee for a couple of years before Brother Pinckney from New York. Once I stepped down, he took it over. But we've been involved in the people in the district, and as we would go to the conclaves, etc. They knew us. So
yeah.
And the kind of people that we touched base with were, Andy Ray back then. If you look at the picture of our chartering, you see all of us with those afros. Andy Ray had an afro back then. He's bald now, like I'm bald. But Andy Ray, Dr. Adam McKee, and the like. So we were always involved. We weren't a little silent entity by any chance.
Very good, very good, very good. How would you describe your relationships now with the remaining charter members of both Gamma Pi and Mu Nu chapter?
With regard to Mu Nu chapter, there are a couple of them still there. I continue to call the name of Dr. Adam McKee, who was one of the charter members. Rudy Powell, who's the dentist over there, he's still there. Herbert Owens is another charter member, and he's still there. And my relationship with them is good. Matter of fact, whenever anything will happen in Tulsa, I communicate with Brother Herbert Owens or whatever. Whenever I see Brother Adam McKee or whatever, it's very congenial. And of course, the fellowship is good. With regard to the charter members in Gamma Pi, there aren't that many of us still around. Of course, you know that Brother George Edwards is not of the best health right now.
Right.
And of course, Brother Joseph Williams is not of the best health right now either. But Joseph Williams and I are from the same hometown. So
okay.
We graduated from college, from our high school together.
Wow.
And so, yes, I'm close to. He just lives a couple of streets from me or whatever. Still close with him. Brother Heron is, he's still active and loud, etc. So
he's still kicking.
I'm still very friendly with him. And then Brother John Robinson, if you can have him hush his mouth for a few minutes and stop telling jokes or whatever. But we're still close.
Yes,
matter of fact, I think there was one meeting that we just went to together. When the initiates went over,
Right.
we rode together. So I'm still fellowshipping with them.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, where would you like to see Gamma Pi go from here?
I would like to see Gamma Pi make a more concerted effort to have harmony within the chapter.
Okay.
Having been affiliated with different chapters, when you get old like me or whatever, you see there's some type of little a disconnect with the younger group or the older group or whatever. And I told you one of my gifts is discernment. And I'm not a part of everything that goes on, but I can discern when something is going awry. Okay. But I would like to see cohesion and closeness or what have you, not just a group here and a group there. And that's what large groups will develop into.
Right, right. What are your thoughts on the fraternity today as a whole?
I'm pleased with the fraternity of today, especially under our current grand bosses, because he has projected Omega Psi Phi fraternity into the public. Whenever there is an issue that's going on that affects society and the public, etc., he is there, and he opens his mouth and he communicates with the fraternity about our getting involved. So I am pleased. Before, it has evolved into that kind of thing, but before it was not that kind of projection of the fraternity.
Right.
And so I'm pleased.
Okay.
I'm pleased, and I do hope that whoever the next grand bosses will be will find a way. I know that there is this problem sometime between nonprofits and fraternities, etc., taking positions, etc.
Right.
I'm aware of that, but they ought to be able to see how all these Omega men we have make an impact, and that is with bringing on Kamala Harris as the vice president and all like that, and the other Panhellenic organizations coming along. Let's stay involved.
All right, so we're winding down. This next question is kind of piggybacks from where you would like to see Gamma Pi go. What suggestions would you offer to help ensure that Gamma Pi and the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated as a whole stay in line with the founder's vision?
We got to remain cognizant of what the founders required. And if you remember a while back, Brother Bird talked about the founders and their, what we ought to be about. We just go back to the basics. Just to the basics. I mean, nothing under the sun is new. Right. So let's go back to the basics of what we ought to be about, how we ought to be conducting ourselves, how we ought to be acting, etc. Because we have a great, great organization.
Absolutely. 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 Do you have any closing words for us?
No, I don't really have any closing words. Omega has been great as far as I am concerned. I've been very pleased with I stated when we had the pledges going over and everything, wherever I would relocate, I would affiliate myself with a chapter in those particular areas, because that's where, and I'm going to use this word again, Brother Brian Long, that's where the intelligentsia is with that fraternity. So,
I said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been amazing, brothers, to sit and talk with Brother Timothy McIntosh, one of our charter members. the charter member who led the charge for chartering Gamma Pi chapter. It's been very enlightening. Learned some things I did not know, and so we are excited to continue on with these interviews of all the charter members that we can catch up with, and we hope you enjoy.